This is my review of the new horror movie, Imaginary. Since it is a spooky movie, we have to first talk about if it is, in fact, spooky. A lot of the horror scenes in this film felt pretty generic to me. This movie follows the tried and true method of all lazy modern horror films, which is to rely only on jump scares. And jump scares get old and they're not really enough to keep an audience on the edge of their seat for the whole film. Each scene feels really formulaic. It's all set up and tension build up, and you can tell exactly when the jump is about to come. It's not really scary because it is so overdone. Every once in a while, this movie had a really cool idea for a shot or a transition, and it got really creative at times, but for the most part felt pretty generic. Also, there was some pretty creative effects. There were some that I have mixed feelings about. I like that they didn't just use CGI. There was a lot of good practical effects, but not all of them really worked for me. One thing I liked about it was how much was going on in the background. There was a lot of fun details added in that you could pick out if you were paying close attention. But yeah, it was just inconsistent in how scary it was, and that's kind of how the whole movie felt. It was a very inconsistent film. This was the pattern I had when watching the movie, which was something would pique my interest. There'd be a cool shot or some good acting or a creative idea, and I would kind of sit up and pay attention, and then the movie would slowly lose me by being very generic and pretty predictable, and then 5 minutes later there'd be another kind of cool thing, and I'd be like, okay, maybe this is gonna be a good movie, but it was just very inconsistent, and it was inconsistent in a lot of its aspects other than the horror elements. Another thing that was inconsistent was the writing. It wasn't the most well-written story. I thought there was a lot of clunky exposition and dialogue where even if the actors were doing a good job at portraying the scene, the subpar writing would take me out of these scenes. However, there's one point in the movie where the writing really shines and the directing kind of at the midpoint, and I won't give that away until the spoiler section, but I'm criticizing the writing a lot. There was this really good scene that really highlighted how smart the script was, but then like everything else, it just got mediocre again and I kind of lost interest. It kind of just seemed like things got less and less scary after the midpoint. But yeah, the writing kind of made the acting worse. And the acting was pretty solid at times. I think the two main performances were really good. The main performances of stepmom lady and little girl, which I'm not going to do any research about this movie, so I'm not going to look up what their names are, but you can do that in your own time. They weren't perfect performances, but I thought they had some nice moments and elevated the movie a little bit. That being said, a lot of the side characters were just kind of goofy as hell and kind of made it so I couldn't take the story seriously. But yeah, inconsistent is the main word here. There kept on being something kind of interesting and I would be like, oh, maybe this is going somewhere, and then just so much boring mediocrity in between that it made the good parts hit less hard because they were surrounded by so much just eh. This is also true of the look of the movie. Honestly, it looked pretty basic in terms of the cinematography, nothing that really stood out to me, but I did have one complaint about it, which was they used like old camcorder footage, or what was supposed to be old camcorder footage, and this might be like a small complaint. Even as someone who knows like very little about cinematography, it's so easy to tell that they shot the scenes on the same camera that they shot the rest of the movie on, and then they just put like a camcorder Snapchat filter over top of it that looked so... It didn't look old at all. It just looked like a rushed effect. And that bothered me a lot. And yeah, at the end they go to this set or environment that's cool and inventive. At least I thought it was, because it started out with a really cool look, and then they start moving through the environment and it just becomes super repetitive, them going through the exact same spaces over and over and over again. There were a few cool effects in this section of the film, but for the most part it got very repetitive. I do have a lot of criticisms for this movie, but it's not without merit. I like how the writing develops this concept. The movie did have a couple moments that genuinely did surprise me, and I like that they took the concept and really added a lot to it and took it further than a surface level basic script would. And yeah, there was some cool details with the direction, like the things in the background and small little details and scares that I really appreciated. And the acting had its moments, but like everything else, it was super inconsistent, so I couldn't fully appreciate it. Anyway, the main reason I like this movie is because it is a horror movie. I can enjoy horror movies of any quality. I think everyone has that one genre, a genre they like so much that they can watch basically any movie in the genre and just be happy because it's that genre. For me, it's horror. For others, it's action or romantic comedies or science fiction. But I can sit through a pretty terrible horror movie and still be having a pretty good time just because I love the genre so much. But just because I have an affinity for the genre doesn't mean I'm going to rank this movie any higher or lower than I would any other movie. This is how I rank it as a film, not as a horror film. And based on the merits of the film's quality, I'm going to give the horror movie version of the film Ted a 4 out of 10. And now I'm just going to talk about a couple spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, leave, or if you don't care, stay. I know most of you guys don't care. But yeah, spoiler number 1, the thing I remember the most is that the dude from The Walking Dead, I think his character was supposed to be in a band of some sort, and at one point he's like leaving to go tour with his band, and he's wearing a fedora, and I thought that shit was so funny. Spoiler number 2 is something I referenced before, which is the middle of the movie's big plot twist, and it's the number one redeeming quality about this movie. This movie has a pretty typical horror setup. It starts with little horror movie girl starting to do creepy horror movie things, and the creepy stuff had to do with this teddy bear she had, who she called her imaginary friend, and would say that it talked to her and told her to do things, and it was all developing like a horror movie that we've all seen many times. And we watch as the main character, the girl's stepmom, sees the bear start to do more and more creepy things, and the girl start to do more and more creepy things because of the bear. So in your head, you're just going, okay, haunted bear. I've seen something like this before. I kind of get where we're going with this. But then the movie goes, fuck you, no you don't. Because in the middle of the movie, they bring in this child psychiatrist because the girl's getting really fucked up, and she has a session with the little girl and watches the girl talk with her imaginary friend, and then she does some creepy horror movie shit, and then she's showing the footage of that session she has with the girl to the stepmom, and she's like, well, how long has she been seeing this bear that isn't there? And the stepmom's like, what are you talking about? The bear's there. She just says it's her imaginary friend. She's like, well, there isn't a bear. And she shows her the footage, and there's just nothing there. And so you realize that the same imaginary friend, the same vision that this girl's seeing, the stepmom can see too. And the reason I like this twist is because it utilizes something I've talked about on this channel before. It utilizes subjective filmmaking in a really interesting way. If you want to hear me nerd out about this subject more, watch my video on the show Barry. But subjective filmmaking is when a director tells a story from a single character's perspective. The filmmaking highlights how the character feels and how the character singularly experiences the world. But usually it's pretty obvious when the filmmaking is subjective. You can tell that they're putting you in the shoes of the character, and you can tell whose eyes you're seeing the story through. But here they use subjective filmmaking against the audience and film it like it is an objective film, like it's not told from one singular perspective. And then the twist is showing you that it is in fact a subjective film, and what you've been seeing has been a singular perspective instead of the perspective of a fly on the wall, so to say. And this is the same reason why the twist in films like The Sixth Sense and Fight Club work so well. Also, I just want you to know that rating these things out of 10 is really hard for me. I'm bad at reviewing things. It feels weird because it's art, and so it's subjective. And now I'm just supposed to throw a number quality on it based on how I feel. But I just want to highlight the fact that it's just my opinion, and it's no better than your opinion or anyone else's opinion. So if you do have an opinion on the movie or want to tell me whether or not you're going to see this movie, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. It was the amount of comments that made my review of the Vince Staples show do as well as it did, because comments kind of tell the algorithm that people are engaging with the content. So, like in that video, if you wouldn't mind just commenting, you're welcome. You don't even have to come up with a comment. If you comment, you're welcome, I will thank you myself in the comments. And to all the people who said you're welcome in the Vince Staples show review comment section, Thank you. I appreciate it. Also, I would thank you for getting me to 600 subscribers, but my algorithm tells me that 97% of you guys aren't even subscribed if you're watching this video right now. So if you aren't, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, if you like the video, and if you want to see more videos like this. Also, if there's a different kind of video you want to see or a different subject you want covered by me, let me know in the comment section. I'd be happy to do it. But anyways, I'm going to go lazily edit this as fast as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.